Es el 4 de agosto 2022. Muy importante la fecha porque yo creo que en las siguientes semanas vamos a estar viendo algo más nuevo sobre DACA, pero hoy voy a estar revisando la decisión de una corte en Nueva York que pasó ayer, que yo he visto mucho en las noticias y hay muchas preguntas, mucha gente que nos está marcando pidiendo información sobre eso. Voy a clarificar eso y como siempre tomar sus preguntas. Pongan sus preguntas abajo si ustedes quieren. Okay. Voy a empezar en inglés, después voy a ir a español, pero pongan las preguntas en el idioma que ustedes quieren. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start off in English, move to Spanish. New DACA decision, been seeing a lot about it on social media, a lot on Spanish-speaking media, not a lot in the print media, and a lot of people seem very confused. A lot of people seem depressed. I will start by acknowledging my privilege. I'm a U.S. citizen. These constant, every few months, updates and changes to DACA, I don't suffer them personally, as many people out there do who have DACA and are living in that limbo, and their families. So I feel for you, and I apologize to have to come back on here again and talk about another negative, but I do believe we still have the hope at the end of the day, maybe even before the end of this month. So I'll get into that. But as always, throw down your questions, comments, and concerns. Happy to address any, if possible, that I can. All right. So what happened yesterday? Not a new court, not a new lawsuit. It's an existing case. Now, to go back through the history of all the DACA lawsuits would take us too long, so I'll give you the tidbits to get you up to speed with the decision from yesterday. DACA came out, Obama administration, Trump comes into office, Trump cancels DACA. Everybody is insanely upset. Lawsuits are filed, including one in the District Court of New York. We're going to call that the Batalla Vidal case. That decision that came out was the watershed decision where everybody said, it's time to apply again, right? Trump was sued for ending DACA, and the judge in this Batalla case from New York said, who you appointed to write the order was not lawfully appointed, therefore the order to rescind, the order to take DACA away, was wrongfully given. So I revert DACA back to the original 2012 memorandum. Everybody's going crazy. People start applying a few days after. The DACA world is good again. Then, right, a few months later, we get the Texas decision, where the Texas decision comes down and says, no, right, I'm not going to give Texas everything they want and completely cancel the program because of the reliance interest that people need DACA. People have been relying on DACA. Renewals can keep going. And new people in the program, because of the New York decision, can send their application, but USCIS cannot give new work permits. So that's how we got to this limbo space that we were before a few days ago, where it's like, wait, we have one judge in New York that says, USCIS, you have to accept the applications now. The Trump bad memo is gone. Then we have the Texas decision that said, it went back to the original memo that the Obama administration wrote, that Napolitano, former governor of Arizona, wrote, and said that order was a violation of APA and other problems with it. And because of that, people can't send off new DACA applications, but because of the reliance interest, people can continue to renew. Now, obviously, we see a conflict and a problem here, right? We have a judge in New York, a Yankee, the North. We have a judge in Texas, the South, right, that says, do away with it, no more new people in the program. And someone up north that a few months before had said, yes, new people in the program. So the attorneys in this case in New York went back to that same judge, went back to the New York judge that issued the good decision in our favor that we were all celebrating, and said, hey, we need you to issue a new order because this Texas judge issued this bad order and USAS is not respecting your order, essentially, right? So that was the decision that we got yesterday. All right, so let's see if we can get this one up here. Just a second here. All right, so we got this here. See if I can move myself out of the way a little bit. So as you can see, this is the decision, August 3rd, 2022. Document 387, the case was filed in 2016, hence the 16 here. CV means it's civil, and it was a 4,756 case filed in the Eastern District of New York in 2016. So this case has been pending for quite a while. So let's take a look at this. Right, the key development since these proceedings has been the Texas 2 order, which is the one I was just telling you about, which was handed down as the DHS began to ramp up processing new applications. More than 80,000 people had by that time applied for but not yet been granted deferred action. So you are not alone. I've heard the number at 100. The judge here puts that at 80,000. That's the number of people that went to apply after this judge in New York issued this decision, right? And then he goes over a little bit the Texas decision and then goes into the legal argument here, which we're going to get really into the weeds of this, but follow along with me, all right? Read at the bottom here. The problem is that the group comprised of members of Batalla Vidal class, which is his class certified by the court, has no doubt been tangibly harmed by the Texas 2 order, right? Their change of position is not directly linked to the objection of the injunction this court entered, which was the vacatur of the Wolf Memorandum. So the judge is essentially saying here, this is a legal technicality. In order for him to issue a new decision, we have to go back and look at what was the objection of his original injunction, whether the government did something to frustrate that afterwards, which would necessitate him having to do another order and modify his order, right? Equitable modification basically means a change, requires showing not just any change factual or legal circumstances, which we have here because of the Texas decision, but specifically those that make compliance with the decree substantially more difficult. I always have trouble saying that word, so I'll just say difficult. Or render the decree unworkable because of unforeseen obstacles or that would be detrimental to the public interest. And he goes into, hey, yeah, public interest, you're right. DACA, we definitely believe that's in the public interest. But essentially the judge goes on to essentially say, when I issued my order, I did it very strategically. I, by law, am supposed to issue my order as straight and limited to the issues as possible. I didn't do this broad. See, he throws a jab in here at the Texas judge. I didn't do it broadly to everybody else, right? That like they did and order, everything in the world. I said, based on this order, this is what has to happen. So because he's saying what was done in Texas, that's the harm, not a misinterpretation of my order. Right, USCIS is still accepting these applications. Now, is it punting? Is it a decision we didn't want to see? Sure it is. Is it a legally correct decision? It probably stands on pretty good legal footing. And let's go down here to the conclusion. DACA remains a vital program that protects hundreds of thousands of people who are brought to the United States as children and who know no other country as their home. It brings this court no pleasure to be unable to offer them the certainty they need and the justice they deserve to plan their lives in America, but this court cannot do so acting alone. Yet another federal judge saying, essentially, I wish I could. That's pretty much what this paragraph says. I wish I could, but the legality of modifying an order of injunction, that legal standard has not been met because essentially something else happened in another case that really caused the harm to us, right? Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense to folks. Now, that's a decision from yesterday. Can it still be appealed? Sure, it can still be appealed. I think, though, it's pretty on pretty solid ground, the judge is, in terms of modifying his injunction, but hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it gets appealed and loses. However, hold the presses. Everybody slow down. This is what I really want to talk about, okay? Let us not lose sight. Let us not forget that the Biden administration has told us that they are going to be publishing this month, August 2022, the new memorandum, the new regulations. So all these fights are over: the 2012 memo, the Wolf memo. We're about to get a new memo, folks. We're about to get a new memo this month. They've told us it's coming out. 60 days is normally the time and when it goes into play after that. Now, obviously, we can expect a litany of lawsuits from Texas and Arizona probably joining the force with our loser attorney general who didn't win his race. So he'll probably want to do some more hating, and he'll go out there and make an attempt to sue as well. But that's why when I read this decision, I didn't get as depressed as I normally get when I read a negative decision about DACA. Because in my mind, this legal argument was such a difficult uphill one to win from the inception of modifying an order based off another judge's order and not based off of what was in the underlying record in this actual case. Right? It's almost like they were, and no disrespect to the attorneys on the case, amazing work, awesome, admire every one of you, but it's almost like they were kind of like trying to do another lawsuit within their own lawsuit without doing all the work for that lawsuit, right? A great effort, should have been made and was made, and very proud of all their work, but nonetheless, it was an uphill battle. But we can still win with this month a good decision from Joe Biden releasing that, and then see what happens in the court. Right? Hope that makes sense. And sorry, I'm getting real dark out here. I'm starting to change because the sun is going down in beautiful AZ. Okay? So put your questions, comments, concerns down below. Happy to take those. I'm going to switch to Espanol también. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns in whatever language you prefer, go ahead and throw them on down. So long story short, decision yesterday, judge said I don't have the authority to do what I want to do. I can't modify my good order that I already made. So DACA applications remain in this limbo where USCIS accepts them but does not adjudicate or does not move them forward at all, does not do background checks yet, does not do promises of not being deported but not work permit, doesn't do anything, also doesn't change those who have been out of the program for more than a year. They still cannot renew. They're still within that category. Thank you so much, Myrtle. I was doing my best that I could to try to figure out a way to make this very complicated process, procedural history, right, in plain terms here. So thank you. Preguntas que tenemos en español antes que empieza a revisar todo. Abogado, ¿qué pasaría en el 5 circuito? Dice que DACA es ilegal. El presidente Biden podrá implementar la nueva regulación siempre, o que piense usted. Creo que sí. Yo sí creo que en agosto, este mes, antes que terminamos este mes, aunque lo que está pasando en 5 circuito, aunque ellos manden decisión, de todos modos va a ser una nueva publicación del programa de DACA, no cambiando las termas, las mismas personas, mismas fechas y todo, que puedan aplicar, sean elegibles. Y eso sí va a resultar en más demandas, pero sí estoy esperando eso. Es mi esperanza. Aunque había una decisión negativa ayer, mi esperanza es muy grande por el orden que el Biden va a hacer en este mes. So, gracias por el comentario. Pregunta Sandra aquí. Buenas tardes, licenciado. ¿Qué hay de cierto que los jóvenes aplicaron para DACA antes de ser mayores de edad pueden arreglar una green card? So, siempre, aunque estás aplicando por DACA, si tienes otro camino abierto para usted, puede tomarlo, ¿verdad? Y si mandas menos de 21 años, probablemente va a estar protegido por una nueva ley, no nueva ya, pero el CISPA por los niños, o sí es bueno. Yo siempre digo, si alguien tiene DACA, es bueno a seguir el otro camino también, el camino que existe debe hacerlo. ¿Okay? Ya, revisando, porque yo sí he visto las noticias, y desafortunadamente creo que hay mucha confusión sobre esa decisión, porque sí es difícil entender, ¿verdad? La decisión ayer fue de un corte de Nueva York que la demanda empezó en 2018. Es el mismo corte, el mismo juez que negó Trump quitando DACA. Era el orden cuando él dijo que la persona que puso Trump en poder no siguieron las reglas bien y por esa razón tiene que cancelar el programa. Ahí este juez dijo que USCIS ya tiene que aceptar otra vez aplicaciones de nuevo. 80,000 personas aplicaron, pero antes que dio permiso de trabajo, promesa de no ser deportado, un juez en Texas, otro caso, dijo que ya no puede seguir USCIS con esas aplicaciones. Entonces los mismos abogados regresaron al corte de Nueva York en el mismo caso y dijeron, nosotros queremos que usted revisa su orden muy bueno que usted hizo, porque el juez en Texas básicamente negó lo que usted ordenó. El juez revisó la ley y la ley dice, si ustedes quieren que yo ponga una nueva orden basado en los detalles del caso y quiere modificar mi orden, tengo que probar que el gobierno básicamente lo hizo algo pasó para que no están siguiendo bien las palabras que yo escribí. No puede decir que otro juez en otro caso hizo algo. Es básicamente lo que dijo el juez. Y al fin el juez dijo, muy sinceramente, que yo quiero, y es en contra de la justicia lo que está pasando con todo ese tiene DACA, pero basado en la ley no puede hacer nada, ¿verdad? Al fin, no es una decisión que yo pienso debemos ver y decir, ya no puede. Ya los que tiene ahí 80,000, o ya si yo puedo ser elegible, ya no debe aplicar. ¿Por qué? ¿Porque soy optimista? No, porque yo sí estoy analizando lo que está pasando. El orden que hizo Napolitano en 2012 fue rechazado por un orden de esa persona que se llama Wolf. Eso fue la decisión de Nueva York cancelando eso. Entonces el juez en Texas canceló el orden de Napolitano 2012. Este mes vamos a recibir nuevo orden, nueva publicación de Biden. So va a ser el tiempo de Biden de publicar DACA de nuevo. Y después de eso, tiene 60 días normalmente para que empiece eso a ser aceptado aplicaciones. Obvio, en ese tiempo vamos a ver demandas, van a ser muy rápidos, a ver qué pasa, ¿verdad? So tenemos que ser muy dependiente de los casos que lo van a poner después de ese anuncio, pero sí es algo que yo todavía tengo esperanza. No voy a venir aquí a hablar con mi comunidad y decir algo que yo no tengo completamente fe. Mucha gente está dormida, yo entiendo, yo no tengo DACA, soy ciudadano americano, yo puedo hablar y regresar a mi casa sin miedo a ser deportado, ¿verdad? So entiendo la frustración, entiendo la gente que está triste, completamente entiendo, pero sí quiero decir que todavía hay esperanza. Y no estoy hablando de Congreso, sí, obvio es el fin lo que queremos, pero también estoy hablando de este mes, vamos a recibir una nueva publicación, son las reglas de DACA de nuevo, pero son iguales. Biden lo está haciendo exactamente igual, lo que hemos visto y lo que estamos esperando, porque recuerdo que él publicó lo que él quería hacer y era igual al programa de antes. Personas tenían chance de preguntar, ¿verdad? Y después ellos van a publicar formalmente, finalmente, y eso va a ser este mes. So síguenos en Face, en el YouTube. Ya vamos a TikTok. Después de eso voy a hacer un TikTok. So, usted nos sigue ahí. Ahí tengo videos también con mi esposa bailando y todo eso. So nos sigues ahí. Y también quiero anunciar que el 20 de este mes vamos a tener un evento por el libro que publicó mi esposa. Vamos a hacer un video separado sobre eso. Pero si está en Phoenix, por favor, venir el 20 de agosto y nos vamos a publicar donde puede comprar boletos y todo eso por un libro excelente que hizo, se llama ¿Dónde está papi? ¿Ok? Ahí esperamos el día 20. Oh, perdón si tengo preguntas aquí. Any advice for deported veterans from Mr. Nunez? I've seen a lot, and I don't have any cases. I'm not taking credit for them, but I've seen a lot of good movement in the Biden administration on deported veteran cases, mainly from law firms in California. So what I would do is I would Google, right, like veteran returns from Mexico, and I would find out who was the attorney of the law firm or the nonprofit working on that case, reach out to those folks and see the status of what's going on over there. But hopefully we continue to see more victories because it just sounds like an oxymoron, deported veteran, right? Is there immigration law from being here 10 years? Thank you. Hey, Juan, thanks for the question. There is a law. It's called cancellation of removal. If you've been in the country for longer than 10 years, you have a U.S. citizen or LPR, permanent resident, child, spouse, or parent, have been a person of good moral character, don't have disqualifying crimes, you can apply for relief that's called cancellation of removal. The problem with cancellation of removal is you have to be in front of an immigration judge. You have to be issued what's called a notice to appear. You have to be properly served with that notice to appear. There's a case that came out today I'm excited to read on that issue. But then you can present that application to the immigration judge. A lot of people come to me, a lot of people call, say, hey, la ley de los 10 años, quiero aplicar, not knowing that you have to be in immigration proceedings in order to apply for that. Is that right? Is that fair? No, but that's what it is, called cancellation of removal. So you have to be in removal proceedings in order to get that canceled. And it is a path to a green card, then it is a path potentially to citizenship as well. That's the ley de 10 años. Interestingly enough, people will then always ask me, well, how do I get in proceedings? And in the past in Arizona, we had attorneys, I'm not going to name names, we had attorneys that would fill out essentially weak, that's a nice word I'm using, weak asylum applications, knowing they would be denied and then sent on to removal proceedings. I saw recently that the attorneys were doing that in New York. Those attorneys are getting arrested. My goodness. I don't think anybody in Arizona got arrested. I know there was some problem with the state bar, but that is the ley de los 10 años one. Okay, Josefina, ¿cómo estás? Y los que tenemos DACA, ¿para cuándo nos van a dar la residencia? Eso es la pregunta que quiero escuchar, ¿verdad? ¿Cuándo le van a dar lo que llaman eses? Todavía estamos esperando eso. Por ser eso, necesitamos un acto del Congreso. No es suficiente un orden de Biden. So el orden de Biden que viene este mes es nada más por la programa de DACA de nuevo. Pero para hacer residencia necesitamos una reforma o, como lo están haciendo muchos, Josefina, puede casar con un ciudadano americano. Si entró con visa, lo arreglamos. Si no entró con visa, tenemos que buscar lo que se llama el perdón. Y al fin de día tiene que ir a Juárez. O también usted puede buscar la manera de salir bajo advance parole, como mi amiga Karina Ruiz de ADAC. Lo están llevando mucha gente de México a conocer educación ahí en México. Y cuando regresas tienes una entrada legal también casando con ciudadano americano. Obvio tiene que ser válido, hay entrevista, hay documentos, todo eso. Pero sí es otro camino a residencia. Okay? My pleasure, senor. Great to see you. Hope everything is well. Want to thank everybody for tuning in, and again remind you the new thing in the world is the tick to the talk. So ahí nos vemos en TikTok, amigos, at Abogado Ray, Abogado Ray, ahí vamos a estar. Que tiene excelente día, y si nos está viendo en YouTube, pone subscribe, Facebook, follow, share this video if you found it useful. I would really appreciate that. Always appreciate the love. Everybody, have a great night.